Loving God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, for you are our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. My mother's sister was quite a cook. She used to love to gather up all the old-fashioned recipes from family members and reincarnate them. And she was the kind of cook that would mix it up. If the recipe called for chicken, she might use pork. If it called for Brussels sprouts, she might use broccoli. If it called for carrots, she might use corn. If it called for peas, she might use green beans. But she was one who loved the recipes, but she wanted to make them her recipe. Turn them into something that was all hers. And I remember one particular evening, she had made one of her husband's favorite dishes that his sister always used to make him, and she substituted hamburger for chicken in the recipe. And he said, there was kind of a family moment here. He said, "This is awful." And she said to him, "Well, it's your sister's recipe," failing to realize that she had changed it up considerably from the original thought, idea. We have two amazing passages this morning, and you guys could get a full sermon on either one. Genesis, the sermon on promises and promises to keep, and late bloomers, and how this sermon might apply to all the possibilities that God lays before us. And do we have the faith to engage when those possibilities present themselves? And how is it we will trust the promise that God is making in the midst of all that unfolding moment? And then we have the story from the gospel, which talks about the cross. And this morning, I'm going to talk about the cross. Because as I live my life, and as I dialogue and visit with all of the families in our faith family, if there is anything at all that I encounter a great deal along with you, it is indeed the moments where you carry the cross that's been handed you. And sometimes they're wonderful crosses and good things and opportunities. And sometimes they are life-changing moments and challenges, bridge-crossing times that means life will never be quite the same ever again. This morning I'm thinking about a wonderful couple at Ashlar Village. They moved in from Philadelphia 3 or 4 years ago. Presbyterians in background, but started coming to our worship service every Sunday afternoon and never missed. Always there, always faithful. Married 60, probably 65 years, a long time. Raised a beautiful family. And one of them now has had to be placed in the Masonic Ramage area, which is the nursing home. The cross that is being carried by the remaining spouse is, I had to make a decision that I could not care for my partner, my friend of 60-plus years. It's a heartbreaking decision. It It is one of the hardest things any one of us might ever have to do. When you realize that I cannot do it. I cannot stay awake 24 hours a day. I cannot be alert. I cannot catch my partner when the falls occur. I cannot do it. One of the gifts in this particular situation is that the one who is in ramage is very pleased to be there, because there is the realization that I'm safer here than I was there. That is not always the case. Sometimes the one who is in the nursing home says, "Why can't I go home?" I think about so many people who in the course of the living of their lives fulfill the promises that they have made and cross these bridges. I'm thinking of another couple in the congregation who's been very active here for years and years. She fell and broke her hip, and generally when you're in your 80s or 90s, this is a real challenge, because if you just get a hip repair, you're going to lie in bed for about 6 weeks. You'll get some rehabilitation, but not a lot. And in this case, the husband was there amazingly every day, all day long. And after the physical therapist left, had other times when they worked at the physical therapy, the exercising, the movement, keeping the focus alive. Wasn't easy. It was exhausting. It was a cross to bear. But now that 6 weeks has passed, she is back home and relatively mobile and able to get around, because a promise was kept, a cross was carried, and an amazing result occurred. In the passage that we read today, Jesus is trying to explain what his ministry will be. And he says to the disciples and others, "Who do people say that I am?" And they say, "Well, some think that you are like Moses or Elijah. Others think you are a special prophet. Still others aren't sure." He says to Peter, "Who do you think that I am?" Peter says, "The Messiah, the one who is to come." And then Jesus talks further about how it is his life will unfold, his understanding of what it will be. And Peter very quickly takes him aside and says, No. You don't die. This is not a part of what the Messiah does. You live. You lift us up out of our bondage. You create possibilities for your people. You change life for all of us. And it was interesting how Jesus responded. "Get behind me, Satan." As if to say, I would love not to die. I would love to absolutely do everything you've just said to me. But there's another plan, and I feel it in my being. The recipe cannot be changed. It is what it is. There are many times in the living of our lives when situations present themselves